I buy a lot of books. As you can see, I now have so many that they cannot be contained by their shelves. They crawl up my walls. I buy most of my books second-hand. Some books even warrant the purchase of several editions, and I enjoy being able to add new ones each week. The books in my collection cover a large scope, ranging from those teenage novels about witches that most of you have probably never heard of, to the sacred texts of Buddhism, Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, to the vintage French grammar books with the ornate covers. As a native speaker of Spanglish, those books were purchased solely for the covers. Buying these books second-hand has allowed me to amass a huge collection on the cheap. I may not own every Norton edition of the classics, but my covers have character. One of my favorite things about these books is the lives that previous owners have left with them. Some people turn up their noses at books with wrinkled pages and books that have been highlighted in, written in, toted around everywhere, dropped in puddles. I don't mind. I love it. Okay, maybe not the dropping in puddles, but I love those little aspects. Especially the objects I find in these books, whether it be the extra-long personal inscription or an actual tangible item. I mean, not every object I find in these books is incredibly interesting, but each object can tell a story, and those stories the object tells can make something seem more intriguing. The most common things I find in books are airline tickets, bookmarks, whether they be from the bookshop where the book was purchased or just a random piece of paper that someone slipped in it, and assorted other little pieces of riffraff and pictures, things like that. The airline tickets are simple. Someone was going somewhere. People read on airplanes all the time, but that's not what is important about these tickets. Most recently, I found an airline ticket for an M. Rybinski tucked into a copy of Warrior of the Light by Paulo Coelho. M. Rybinski was flying from Chicago to Orange County at the end of March. Whether it was March of this year or March of last year, I can't be certain. Warrior of the Light is a guide for accepting the failure, embracing life, and rising to your destiny, as the cover proclaims. While this airline ticket might not seem too interesting, just think about it. Why this book? Why this flight? M. Rybinski traveled to California, toting a book about finding yourself. Makes you wonder what was waiting for him or her in California, why they went, and if they found what they were looking for. Maybe they have embraced life back here in Illinois, or maybe they sit there waiting for their next chance to escape. Not all the items I find are as boring as the airline tickets or bookmarks. And like Water for Chocolate by Laura Esquivel, one of the interesting books I had the pleasure of reading in high school, I found a few more worthwhile things. The book, which was adapted into a movie several years back, is one of love and cooking. It has magical realist elements to it, and there are even elements of witchcraft mixed in with the cooking and the loving. The book itself is sorted into chapters sorted by month. Each month begins with a different recipe. I bought this book several years back. When I got it home, I realized that something was making the pages bulge. I pulled out a pressed rose from between the pages. It was stuffed in the pages of the March chapter, a chapter complete with the recipe for quail and rose petal sauce. A few chapters later, during the month of July, I found a photograph of a man. He seems to be slightly older, maybe mid-20s, sitting on a table in a school environment, staring at the camera. Given the Larkin High School stamp on the inside cover, I would say that this is the setting for our romance. Did this man give our reader the rose, or was it only a schoolgirl crush? Was she saving the rose to make the quail and rose petal sauce? Found items like this let us explore unknown territories. For someone who loves to read and whose imagination still runs rampant, this is a great dream. Just looking through my own books, the few books I have bought firsthand, I find my own forgotten artifacts. In Bluebirds Used to Croon in the Choir, a collection of short stories by Joe Monod, I find my own lost items. a cologne sample, a hiragana Japanese flashcard, a photo of my boyfriend and the cat we no longer have. The photo on the flashcard can link me back to the time when I was reading this book and the happiness of that summer afternoon. The cologne I can't even remember, though the smell still lingers on the card even after all these years. I liken these artifacts to the dead letters sent each year. Just as these letters never reach their intended recipient, these little items are also lost without a home. The stories they tell, whether they are real or just ones that I have made up in my head, can still be of interest to me, even as these items get lost in the masses.